The barn door creaked, and my heart stopped. His hand, calloused from years of hauling hay, gripped mine with a quiet urgency that sent shivers down my spine. In that fleeting moment, under the fading Nebraska sun, I knew nothing would ever be the same. My name is Caleb, 24, a wiry guy with a mop of sandy blonde hair and a habit of overthinking everything. I'd been working at the Whitaker farm for 3 summers, a temporary escape from the suffocating expectations of my small-town life in Lincoln. The farm, sprawling across acres of golden wheat and dusty trails, belonged to the Whitakers, a family as rooted in tradition as the ancient oaks lining their property. I was just a hired hand, there to mend fences, feed livestock, and keep my head down. But then there was Ethan. Ethan Whitaker, 26, was the kind of man who could silence a room just by walking into it. Broad-shouldered, with dark eyes that seemed to hold secrets older than the land itself. He was the eldest son, destined to inherit the farm. He was quiet, not out of shyness, but because he saw no need to fill silence with meaningless words. I caught him watching me sometimes when I was fixing a tractor or hauling water to the horses, his gaze lingering just a second too long. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself a lot of things. That summer, though, something shifted. The air felt heavier, charged with an unspoken tension that followed us like a storm cloud. It was late July, the kind of heat that made your clothes stick to your skin. And we'd been working all day to repair a broken irrigation line. Sweat dripped from my brow as I knelt in the dirt, wrench in hand, cursing the rusted bolts. Ethan was beside me, his flannel shirt rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms tanned from years under the sun. He didn't say much, just handed me tools and grunted in agreement when I muttered about the stubborn pipe. Almost done, I said, wiping my forehead with the back of my hand. The sun was dipping low, painting the fields in shades of amber and crimson. Ethan nodded, but his eyes weren't on the pipe. They were on me. Caleb, he said, his voice low, almost swallowed by the hum of crickets. You ever think about leaving this place? I froze, caught off guard. Lincoln, you mean? Or the farm? He shrugged, leaning back on his heels. Both. Either. Just somewhere else. I laughed, though it came out shaky. All the time. But where's a guy like me gonna go? Not like I've got a trust fund or a big plan. His lips twitched. Not quite a smile. You could do anything. You know. You're smarter than you let on. The words hit me harder than they should have. I was used to being the invisible one, the guy who fixed things and faded into the background. But Ethan saw me, really saw me, and it made my chest ache in a way I couldn't name. We finished the repair as the last light bled from the sky, and I stood, stretching my aching back. Ethan didn't move. He was still crouched by the pipe, staring at the ground like it held the answers to questions he hadn't asked yet. Then, without warning, he stood and grabbed my wrist. Come with me, he said, his voice rough but not unkind. Before I could protest, he was pulling me toward the barn, its weathered red walls looming against the twilight. Ethan, what I started. But he didn't answer. He pushed open the heavy door, and the scent of hay and old wood hit me like a memory. Inside, the barn was dim, lit only by slivers of moonlight slipping through the cracks. My heart was pounding now, not from fear, but from something else, something I'd buried deep. He let go of my wrist, but didn't step back. We were close, too close, and I could feel the heat radiating from him. I need to show you something, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I swallowed hard, my mouth dry. What is it? He didn't answer with words. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn journal, its leather cover cracked with age. He opened it to a page filled with his tight, precise handwriting and held it out to me. My hands trembled as I took it, my eyes scanning the words in the faint light. It was a letter, not addressed to anyone, not signed, but raw and unguarded, like he'd poured his soul onto the page. It spoke of fear, of hiding who he was, of a life spent pretending to be the man everyone expected. It spoke of Meph watching me work, of wanting to say things he couldn't, of moments when he'd almost crossed a line but pulled back. My breath caught as I read the final line. I don't know how to tell him, but I'm running out of time. I looked up, and Ethan was watching me, his face a mix of hope and dread. That's about me? I asked, my voice cracking. He nodded, just once, and the weight of it hit me like a freight train. All the glances, the silences, the moments I'd dismissed as my imagination, they were real. He was real, and he was standing here, bearing his heart in a way I'd never dared to. Ethan, I started, but the word stuck. I wanted to say I felt it too, that I'd spent months convincing myself he was untouchable, that I was terrified of what this meant. But before I could, he stepped closer, his hand brushing my cheek, and the world fell away. His lips met mine, tentative at first, then fierce, like he'd been holding back for years and couldn't anymore. The journal slipped from my hands, forgotten, as I kissed him back, my fingers tangling in his shirt. The barn, the farm, the weight of who we were supposed to bite all dissolved in that moment. There was only us, two souls finding each other in the dark. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, his forehead rested against mine. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't know how else to tell you. Don't be sorry, I said, my voice thick with emotion. Just don't stop. He smiled, a real smile this time, and it was like the sun breaking through clouds. But even as my heart soared, a shadow lingered. This was Nebraska, 2025, and the world outside this barn wasn't kind to people like us. I didn't know what came next, but I knew one thing. I'd never look at Ethan Whitaker the same again. The days that followed were a blur of stolen moments and whispered promises. We'd work side by side, pretending nothing had changed, but every brush of his hand against mine sent sparks through me. At night, we'd sneak away to the barn or the edge of the wheat fields, talking about everything and nothing, our fears, our dreams, the lives we wanted but weren't sure we could have. Ethan told me about the pressure of being the Whitaker heir, the expectations of a town that saw him as the golden son. I told him about my own struggles, the family I barely spoke to, the part of myself I'd kept hidden even from myself. But secrets don't stay buried in small towns. One evening, as we sat by the creek, our fingers intertwined, I caught a flicker of movement in the trees. My stomach dropped. Someone was watching us. Caleb, Ethan said, his voice low, urgent. We need to be careful. I nodded, but my heart was racing. The farm, once a refuge, now felt like a trap closing around us. And as the summer burned on, I couldn't shake the feeling that our time was running out. The air grew heavier as August settled over the Whitaker farm, thick with the scent of ripening wheat and unspoken fears. Ethan and I had carved out a fragile world of our own, but the shadow of that figure in the trees haunted me. Every creak of the barn, every rustle in the fields, made my pulse spike. We were careful, or as careful as two people drunk on each other could be. During the day, we kept our distance, trading only the briefest glances while we worked. But at night, when the farm slept, we'd find each other by the creek, in the loft, or under the endless Nebraska stars. Each moment felt like a stolen breath, precious and fleeting. One night, as we lay in the hayloft, the moonlight painting his face in silver, Ethan traced circles on my palm. If I could, I'd leave this place, he said softly. Take you somewhere no one knows us. California, maybe, or New York. I propped myself up on one elbow, studying him. You'd leave the farm, your family. His jaw tightened. It's not about leaving them. It's about living. Really living. Caleb. Not just existing for everyone else. I wanted to believe him, to imagine a life where we didn't have to hide. But the weight of reality pressed down on me. What about your dad? Your brothers? This place is your legacy. He looked away, his eyes distant. Sometimes a legacy feels like a noose. I didn't know how to respond, so I just pulled him closer, letting the warmth of his body chase away the chill of his words. But the fear lingered, a quiet drumbeat in the back of my mind. The next morning, trouble found us. We were in the equipment shed, sorting tools, when Ethan's younger brother, Lucas, stormed in. Lucas was 19, lanky and sharp-eyed, with a temper that flared like dry tinder. He'd always been friendly enough, but something in his posture today set my nerves on edge. "Ethan," he said, his voice tight. "Dad wants you at the house. Now." Ethan wiped his hands on his jeans, unfazed. "What's got him riled up this time?" Lucas's eyes flicked to me, and my stomach twisted. "Just go," he said. "And you, Caleb, maybe lay low for a bit." Ethan shot me a reassuring look before heading out, but I couldn't shake the unease. I busied myself with the tools, trying to focus, but Lucas lingered, leaning against the shed wall. "You and my brother," he said suddenly, his voice low. "You think no one notices?" My heart stopped. I forced a laugh, but it came out wrong. "Not sure what you're talking about, Lucas." He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "Don't play dumb. I saw you two by the creek, holding hands like some kinda love story." The air left my lungs. I wanted to deny it, to laugh it off, but the words wouldn't come. Lucas didn't look angry, exactly more conflicted, like he was wrestling with something he didn't understand. "I ain't gonna tell Dad," he said finally. "But you need to be careful. This town, it chews up people who don't fit." I nodded, my throat tight. "Thanks, Lucas." He didn't respond, just turned and walked away, leaving me with the weight of his warning. That night, I told Ethan what happened. His face hardened, but he didn't seem surprised. "Lucas won't say anything," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "He's a good kid. Just curious." "Curious isn't the problem," I said. "What happens when someone else sees? Your dad, or one of the other hands?" Ethan didn't answer, just pulled me into his arms. But the fear was growing, a crack in the foundation of our fragile world. A week later, the crack became a chasm. We were in the barn, stealing a moment between chores, when the door slammed open. Ethan's father, Robert Whitaker, stood there, his face like thunder. Robert was in his late 50s, a man carved from the same rugged earth as the farm, with a temper that could shake the walls. "Ethan," he barked. "Step away from him. Now." My blood ran cold. Ethan stiffened but didn't move. "Dad, it's not. Don't lie to me," Robert roared, his voice echoing in the barn. I heard the talk. I didn't believe it. Not about my own son. But then I saw you two, sneaking around like thieves. I wanted to disappear, to sink into the hay-strewn floor. Ethan stepped in front of me, his voice steady. "Dad, just listen." "No." Robert cut him off. "This ends now. Caleb, you're done here. Pack your things and get off my land by morning." The words hit like a fist. I opened my mouth to protest, but Ethan grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "Don't," he whispered. "Not now." Robert stormed out, leaving a silence that felt like a wound. Ethan turned to me, his eyes blazing with something I couldn't name: anger, fear, defiance. "I'm not letting this happen," he said. "I'm not losing you." But as I looked at him, the weight of his father's words sank in. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about the farm, the family, the town, a world that didn't want us together. And I didn't know if love was enough to fight it. The next morning, I stood in the bunkhouse, shoving clothes into my duffel bag, each movement mechanical. My mind was a storm: anger at Robert, fear for Ethan, and a bone-deep ache at the thought of leaving. The farm had been my refuge, and Ethan had been my reason to stay. Now both were slipping through my fingers. Ethan found me before I could finish packing. His face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed like he hadn't slept. "Caleb, don't go," he said, his voice raw. "We can fix this." "How?" I snapped, louder than I meant to. "Your dad made it clear. I'm out. And you're, what? Gonna defy him. Risk everything." He flinched, but didn't back down. I don't care about the farm. Not if it means losing you. The words should have warmed me, but they only deepened the ache. You say that now, but this place is your life. Ethan, your family. Don't. He cut me off, stepping closer. Don't say you're just anything. You're everything. My throat tightened, and I looked away, unable to meet his eyes. What do we do? Then. Run. Hide. Pretend this never happened. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took my hand and led me outside, to the edge of the wheat fields where the world felt a little less heavy. The sun was rising, casting a golden glow over the land. And for a moment, I could almost believe we were untouchable. I've got some money saved, he said finally. Not much, but enough to get us out of here. We could go west. Start over. Together. The idea was intoxicating a new life. Just us. Free from judgment. But it was also a fantasy. And I knew it. And your family. Your brothers. You'd leave them behind. His jaw clenched. They'd be fine. Lucas is old enough to step up. Dad, he'll get over it. But I wasn't so sure. Robert Whitaker wasn't the kind of man who forgave easily. And Ethan was his pride. His legacy. Walking away would mean burning bridges that couldn't be rebuilt. Before I could respond, a truck roared up the dirt path, kicking up dust. It was Lucas, his face grim as he jumped out. You need to see this, he said, holding out his phone. It was a photo, grainy but unmistakable, me and Ethan by the creek. Our hands intertwined, our faces close. My stomach dropped. Who took this? I demanded. Doesn't matter, Lucas said. It's going around town. People are talking. Ethan cursed under his breath, his hands balling into fists. Who sent it to you? Lucas hesitated, then said, one of the hands. Jake. Maybe. Said he found it on some group chat. The name hit me like a brick. Jake was another hired hand. A burly guy in his 30s with a mean streak and a grudge against anyone who didn't fit his idea of normal. I caught him sneering at me before, but I hadn't thought he'd go this far. We need to leave, Ethan said, his voice urgent. Now. But I shook my head. Running won't fix this. They'll just keep talking, keep judging. We need to face it. Ethan stared at me, his eyes searching mine. You sure? No, I admitted. But I'm tired of hiding. Lucas looked between us, his expression unreadable. Dad's gonna lose it when he sees this, he said. You know that, right? Ethan nodded, his face set. Then let's talk to him first. We found Robert in the kitchen, his broad frame hunched over a cup of coffee. He didn't look up as we entered, but the tension in the room was suffocating. Ethan took a deep breath and started talking about us. About the photo. About everything he'd kept buried for years. His voice shook, but he didn't stop, not even when Robert's face turned to stone. When Ethan finished, the silence was deafening. Robert stood, his chair scraping against the floor, and for a moment, I thought he might hit one of us. Instead, he pointed at the door. Get out, he said, his voice low and deadly. Both of you. Ethan didn't move. Dad, I'm not leaving. Not like this. Robert's eyes flashed. You think you can parade this sin around my farm? In my town? You're my son, Ethan, but I won't have it. The word sin cut deeper than I expected. I'd heard it before, growing up in a house where love came with conditions. But hearing it from Robert, directed at Ethan, was a different kind of pain. I wanted to speak, to defend us, but Ethan beat me to it. This isn't a sin, he said, his voice steady now. It's who I am. And if you can't accept that, then maybe I don't belong here. Robert's face crumpled, just for a second, before hardening again. Then go. But don't expect to come back. We left the kitchen, the weight of his words hanging over us. Outside, the farm felt different, less like a home, more like a battlefield. Ethan took my hand, his grip firm, And for the first time, I felt like we might actually survive this. But the town wasn't done with us. That night, as we sat in the bunkhouse, planning our next move, a rock crashed through the window, shattering glass across the floor. Attached was a note, scrawled in angry red ink, "Freaks don't belong here." The glass crunched under my boots as I picked up the note, my hands shaking. Ethan was at my side in an instant, his face pale but resolute. "We're not staying here tonight," he said, grabbing his jacket. "Come on." We threw what we could into my truck clothes, a few keepsakes, Ethan's journal, and drove to a motel on the edge of town. The neon sign flickered as we checked in, the clerk barely glancing at us. In the dim room, with its peeling wallpaper and musty smell, we sat on the bed, the weight of the day pressing down on us. "I'm sorry," Ethan said, his voice breaking. "I didn't think it had come to this." I took his hand, squeezing it. "This isn't your fault. It's theirs, the ones who can't handle us being happy." He looked at me, his eyes glistening. "Are we happy? I mean..." The question caught me off guard. Were we? Despite the fear, the rejection, the shattered glass, I realized I'd never felt more alive than when I was with him. "Yeah," I said softly. "When I'm with you, I am." He kissed me then, slow and desperate, like he was trying to hold on to something slipping away. We fell asleep tangled together, the world outside forgotten for a few hours. The next morning, we woke to a barrage of texts. Lucas had sent a dozen messages, warning us that the photo had spread further, that people were gathering at the town hall to deal with the problem. My stomach churned. This wasn't just gossip, Anna Maria, it was a witch hunt. "We need to go back," I said, surprising even myself. "We can't let them run us out like this." Ethan stared at me, his jaw tight. "Caleb, they threw a rock through our window. What's next? A mob?" "Maybe," I admitted. "But if we run, they win. And I'm done letting people like Jake decide who I am." He didn't argue, but I could see the fear in his eyes. We drove back to the farm, the air thick with tension. When we arrived, Lucas was waiting, his face grim. "Dad's at the town hall," he said. "They're talking about you too. It's bad." We didn't hesitate. We piled into my truck and headed to the town hall, a squat brick building in the heart of town. Inside, a crowd of maybe 50 people filled the room, their voices a low roar. Robert stood at the front, flanked by Jake and a few other locals, their faces twisted with righteous anger. Ethan pushed through the crowd, pulling me with him. The room went quiet as we stepped into the center, all eyes on us. I felt exposed, like a deer in a hunter's sights. But Ethan's grip on my hand kept me steady. "Enough," Ethan said, his voice cutting through the silence. "This stops now. Caleb and I aren't hurting anyone. We're just trying to live, same as all of you." Jake stepped forward, sneering. "You call that living? Parading your lifestyle in our faces. This is a God-fearing town." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, but not everyone looked convinced. I spotted Mrs. Carter, the librarian, her face troubled, and Mr. Nguyen, who ran the hardware store, shifting uncomfortably. "Then leave," Robert said, his voice cold. "If you won't respect our ways, you're not welcome here." Ethan's hand tightened around mine. "This isn't about your ways, Dad. It's about fear. You're all so scared of anything different that you'd rather destroy your own than accept them." The room was silent now, the weight of his words sinking in. I took a deep breath and spoke, my voice steadier than I felt. "I've spent my whole life hiding who I am, afraid of what people like you would think. But I'm not ashamed anymore. I love Ethan, and that's not a sin, it's the best part of me." A few people gasped, but others nodded, their expressions softening. Mrs. Carter stepped forward, her voice quiet but firm. "They're not hurting anyone. Let them be." The room erupted in arguments, some defending us, others shouting us down. Robert's face was unreadable, but I saw something shift in his eyes, doubt. Maybe, or guilt. Ethan pulled me close, his voice low. Whatever happens, we're in this together. Before anyone could respond, Lucas pushed through the crowd, his face flushed. Stop it, he shouted. He's my brother. Dad, you gonna kick him out? Then you're kicking me out too. The room froze. Robert stared at Lucas, his expression crumbling. For the first time, I saw the man behind the Onyera father terrified of losing his sons. He opened his mouth, but no words came. The meeting ended in chaos, with no resolution. But as we left, I felt a spark of hope. Not everyone in that room hated us. Some, like Mrs. Carter and Lucas, were willing to fight for us. And that was enough to keep going. The days after the town hall were a tense standoff. Ethan and I stayed at the motel, avoiding the farm while we figured out our next move. Lucas kept us updated, texting about the arguments at home, the neighbors taking sides, and Robert's stubborn silence. The town was split. Some saw us as a threat, others as a wake-up call. But change, even in a place as rooted as this, was starting to stir. One evening, Lucas called us back to the farm. Dad wants to talk, he said, his voice cautious. He's not yelling anymore. That's something, right? We drove back, the familiar dirt roads feeling foreign now. When we arrived, Robert was waiting on the porch, his face lined with exhaustion. Ethan hesitated, then stepped forward, his shoulders squared. I stayed close, my heart pounding. Sit, Robert said, gesturing to the porch chairs. His voice was gruff, but the venom was gone. We sat, the silence stretching until he finally spoke. I was wrong, he said, the words heavy. Not about everything, but about you, Ethan. And you, Caleb. I thought I was protecting this family, this farm, but I was just protecting my own fears. Ethan's breath caught, and I reached for his hand, not caring who saw. Robert's eyes flicked to our joined hands, but he didn't flinch. I don't understand it, he admitted. Not yet, but I don't want to lose my son. Or you, Caleb. Your family too. The words hit me like a wave, washing away months of fear. Ethan's eyes glistened, but he didn't speak, just squeezed my hand tighter. It's not going to be easy, Robert continued. This town, these people, Theory said in their ways. But I'll stand by you. Both of you. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale. But it was a start. Over the next weeks, we returned to the farm, cautious but hopeful. Some of the hands, like Jake, kept their distance, their disapproval clear. But others, like Mrs. Carter and Mr. Nguyen, became unexpected allies, speaking up when the gossip flared. Lucas, too, was a quiet force, challenging anyone who dared to badmouth his brother. Ethan and I rebuilt our place on the farm, one day at a time. We worked the fields, shared meals with the family, and stole moments in the barn, no longer hiding. The town didn't change overnight. There were still whispers, still glares, but the hatred lost its edge, softened by time and the courage of those who stood with us. One evening, as the sun set over the wheat fields, Ethan pulled me into the barn again, just like that first night. But this time, there was no journal, no secrets, just us, standing in the open, unafraid. I love you, he said, his voice steady. Sure. And I'm not going anywhere. I smiled, my heart full. I love you too. And I'm staying right here. We kissed, the world falling away, and I knew we'd face whatever came next together. The farm, once a place of hiding, had become our home, a testament to love, resilience, and the power of standing up for who you are. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were living.